Happy Sunday. This is episode 5 of Let's Get Real About Racism. I want to talk to you today about white privilege. This is a term that a lot of us as white folks are uncomfortable with. And today's goal is to get you comfortable with it and to help you better understand how you can be an ally for Black friends and the Black Lives Matter movement. We've had a very intense few weeks, which is why I started this series in the good old US of A. And it's obvious that it's time for some change, and it is our responsibility to help heal the divide. So we're going to start with our white privilege, what that means, and how we can help move past it, if you will. So we as white folks didn't have any choice in the skin that we were born in. And I know that a lot of white people, especially white men, really feel badgered at this point, like they're doing something wrong just by being a white male. But I do want you to think about the other person. They were also born into this world with black skin, and they didn't have any choice in that. And they are being victimized every day as a result of that. Because we have white privilege, we have an opportunity, and I believe a moral obligation, to even out the odds for them. How do we do that? The first thing we need to do is accept, realize, and honor that we live a life of white privilege. That's hard for a lot of us to swallow, but it's the truth, and trying to deny it isn't going to change it. So by the time we get through with this session today, I want you to be able to say out loud, if you are in fact white, I live a life of white privilege. There's some guilt associated with that. You can expect to be uncomfortable, to have some intense emotions regarding that fact. It doesn't change it. You need to get comfortable with it, and you need to be proactive about it. So there are several books I'm going to recommend to you today that you can read that'll give you some better perspective on what's happening in the world, what it is to be black, and how we as white folks can help heal the divide. The first one is White Fragility, which I have in another location in the house. The next is Racism in America. I love the cover of this book because it's the same little boy. He just has white skin and white hair on one side and dark skin and black hair in the other. White Rage, The Unspoken Truth of Our Racial Divide. Very powerful read. I found this interesting, Waking Up White and Finding Myself in the Story of Race. And this just sort of validates what I was saying about you didn't choose to be white. They didn't choose to be black. We didn't implement racism. We didn't start or create a racial divide, but our complacency in the situation allows it to continue and in fact fosters it. So it is our responsibility to be an ally, to not be a non-racist, but anti-racist, to speak up when necessary, to step up in situations where someone is being degraded or subjugated, mistreated in any way, and speak out. And that's where we are now. So I want us to try to put ourselves in the day in the life of a black family. If you are a white man, maybe you're a husband, maybe you have children, I want you to think about your morning jog and the fact that the color of your skin isn't going to offend anyone, isn't going to prevent you from running in a particular neighborhood. isn't going to have people stopping you, asking you, what are you doing here? Something I hear repeatedly from a lot of my black friends is that I feel like I have to fight just to exist, that I have to prove why I'm here. And that is as emotionally abusive to someone as anything could be. So this battle that they're fighting day in and day out, where they're constantly being slowed down in their progress, they're constantly being held back. A black person is more likely to be told that they can't enter a certain career path, that they can't walk that path, they can't do that, that there are limitations for them that only exist as our culture and society allows them to. It's very emotionally damaging. If you're a woman, a white woman, I want you to think about your family. I want you to think about your children. Imagine you're in a situation where you're cooking dinner and you've just run out of something you need. Milk, cornmeal, whatever the case may be. You just want to have your son run down to the corner store and grab some and run back. If you were a black mother, particularly a black single mother living in poverty, your son could be killed on his run to the corner store for you. I want you to let that sink in. The love of your life, your child, could be murdered in broad daylight because of the color of their skin, because they were running with milk in their hand. This isn't an exaggeration. This is a reality that the African American community lives with day in and day out. And it is our responsibility as white folks living with white privilege to call out those atrocities when they happen, to intervene in situations when we can. This is tricky. I know for a lot of us it's easier to turn the other cheek and walk away because you don't know if that black person is going to welcome your help, if you're going to escalate the situation. Because black people have lived all their life navigating the madness of it all. When do they walk away? How do they get out of a bad situation? From the time they wake up in the morning until the time they go to sleep. It doesn't matter if they have a $150,000 job a year and are a lawyer and live in a really nice neighborhood. They still have to fight this battle every single day. And it's our complacency and our lack of understanding and empathy and our denial of white privilege that allows this to continue. Family is a really intense thing for all of us. Most of us would die for our family. We would fight to the death for them. There was a movie Matthew McConaughey starred in many years ago where he played a Mississippi lawyer who was defending or maybe he was trying to convict, that's what it was, 2 white males who had brutally raped and murdered a little black girl. And this was a true story. This had really happened. They were blatantly racist, rebel flag carrying, hate-filled rednecks. Now, Trey Crowder would say that the word redneck is racist, which it probably is, but that's the best description I can give you in my life experiences and where I'm at this point, right? We're all evolving and growing. So these men were let off. They were allowed to walk away with what they did to this little girl. And the father murdered him. He shot at least one of those. And then he was put on trial. And I remember as I watched that, it's very difficult for me to handle that kind of violence in a movie at all, especially if I know it's a true story, especially if it's against a woman or child. I just really take on that pain. And I remember sitting there thinking, if I was that father, I would have done the same thing. So as white folks living with white privilege, I beg of you, put yourself in these families' situations. The hellish existence they have day in and day out, just trying to breathe, with the knee of white privilege on their neck, trying to exist, many being people of faith and Christians, and trying to be patient and loving and understanding through it all when they're being killed, when the people they love are being horrifically, brutally murdered, and nothing being done about that. No justice to be had in those situations. I think that many of us as white folks would not turn the other cheek, would not be patient, would not protest. I think a lot of us would lose our minds. I think some of us would commit suicide. And I think some would take to the streets, murdering like mad. We have a moral responsibility to recognize our white privilege, to counteract it in every possible way with every opportunity we can. And something that I really want to project in this moment is, in doing this, we must be very careful, respectful, and honoring the black boys. And what I mean by that is, if there's in a situation where someone is being mistreated, ask them, how can I help you? How can I intervene in this situation? Get them out of it if you can. Protect them in any way you can. But we have to do what's right for them, and their situation may be that they want to handle it themselves. And I'm sure this all seems so complicated and intense, and why should we have to take this on, and it's safer for us just to get ourselves out of the situation and walk away? No, it isn't. It isn't, because at some point the violence is going to be turned on us as white folks. And it'll be our fault because we allowed it to culminate and get to that point. I want you to say with me, if you are white, I live a life of white privilege. I want you to say that until you're comfortable with it. I want you to take the emotion of guilt and shame that may come along with that, and I want you to apply it to your everyday life and interactions. Next week, I'm going to talk about healing the divide and building relationships with the Black community, which I think is a very important part of our next step in all of this. We are going to overcome this. Sam Cooke's song, A Change Is Going to Come, has just been so heavy in my heart the last week plus. I do believe that that's what's happening right now. We are going to create positive change out of this. We have enough people that are willing to step up to that and be allies to the Black community and make sure that their pain stops. Peace and love to you all. Keep up the good fight, which is equality for all.